and click myself here on create table, infrastructure, and move forward from there. So we know how to create table. That is done. This is a general way of how to create table, and dot 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 means you can create table with the where clause as well. Well, we haven't seen that, but let's look at that. Drop table, just the name of the table and you can drop it. Drop table shipper, drop table whatever name. Truncate table is the statement used to delete the data inside the table but not the table itself. And similar to that, delete all from that table. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me, but that's okay. Anything that we can do with the create table can be done with the alter table. So if we have an oops or missed out on a field, or want to rename the column or add a column, drop a column, rename a column, add a foreign key, add a primary key, add a constraint, everything can be done with the alter table. So create the table and you can add all those things later on. But don't be too late, otherwise you will have null values if you are adding a column, right? Think of it that if you have a table that has all the data in it and and then you forget a column after you entered like 10 records. If you add a column to it, all those 10 people for which you have entered the data will have the value null. So you have to quickly identify what is the value that you want to give for those people, or you might have to reapproach all those guys and say, hey, sorry, I forgot to add this field. Now this field is added. Can you provide me with the value of it? And it is particularly difficult in ERP system. If somebody, if your boss come back and say to you, can we add a field to this form because this field wasn't there? Adding a field is not a problem. You can add a field, you can add a column, and you can add a field in the front interface like Java, when you are developing a web page or ERP system in the form of forms or Windows forms or Python forms or whatever forms. That's not a problem. But problem is what you will do with the null values of the previous guys, right? So you have to give it either a default value, or ask and phone everybody that what is the, can you please give me this value, can you please give me that value or that, if it could be varying values for everyone. So you don't want to be, you want to minimize the nulls in the database. Why you want to minimize the nulls in the database? Can you think of? And particularly nulls in the database in regard to dollar amount. Why do you think if you add a field after you have added? So this is a critical thinking question from me, not from the book. So let's say you have 10 people, you have entered all the values. Let's say your boss comes and say that can you add a column called salary to that employee? I can add the I can add a column salary to the table, no problem. As you can see, add column is there for me. I can add a salary column, add alter table customer, add a column, add salary, and then the numeric or double numeric 5 comma 2 or 6 comma 2. I can take in a value of that, but what is the problem? Problem is, if you are going, and this is a very important point to understand in data analytics side of things. Problem is, if you have missing information for bunch of people and you have information for bunch of people, 5 people have value for the salary, 5 people don't have the value for salary, your data is skewed. Because if you take out the average salary of all the employees, 5 of them are nulls, or you can consider them as zero. But instead they have the value, but you don't know the value until you ask HR, payroll, or the person himself, what is the value of, what is your salary value? So if you are doing some analytics, you have the skewed data. You either fill in a default value, which let's say for example everybody in the company has, let's say for example, some salary range from let's say 20, 25 20, 25. Five people have these kind of value between 20 and 25. So you know the average value of the salary will be around 27 or 28. Then five people are added, but there are no salary for those guys. You will have a null value for that. Now, if you say, give me an average value on this company, because you don't have those five rows, what salary you will consider? You will not have uh, um, you will not have indication from anyone in the company what is the salary. So if somebody says, can you give me the average salary in this company, when you will sum it up and divide it by 10 people, your average salary will come down to maybe 15, 12 or 15 or something, which is totally wrong if you would have the value. So that is why adding a column is okay until and unless you know what will be the default value for all those records which you are getting, which were added in the past, so that null values are getting cared of. Yes, for example, columns like email address, you can leave. For example, if somebody did not provided their email address or their personal phone number or their friend's phone number or whatever in the database field that you have, you can live without those fields. But on the fields on which you will be doing some analytics, you will have an issue. So adding a column, dropping a column, don't try to drop a column with the primary key. I never tried that, but if you try that, you might have an error or issue. Renaming a column, alter table, rename the column if you don't like the name of the field or a column name, and uh, modify a data type. If you want to change the data type of a column from varchar to integer or integer to varchar or varchar to char, whatever value you want to change, yes, you can do that. One other thing to keep in mind, these schema changes that you are doing, and always keep in mind, if you are doing schema changes and your developer is writing queries for it, he's writing queries, views, and over the period of time, let's say you created a table 1 year ago and then you are adding a column to it. For over the 1 year period, whatever development has happened, if person has explicitly written select all from this table, then it is okay that whatever column you add, it will start to appear in your column query. So over the period, your PHP developer might have written a query, your C# developer who's writing the application might have written a query. Over the period of time, if they have used in their queries explicit column name, not star, explicitly they have typed out each column name, they will have to go in their code and cater all those all that columns that you are adding to a table now. Or if you are dropping a column and they have referenced that column in their code, they will have error in their code. That is why it is very costly to add a column, drop a column, renaming a column. Because if the pointer is not there, code is a code. Code is just looking for the map. If the pointer is not there, your code will start to throw you errors. So it's a costly thing. So you cannot just blindly add a column, remove a column, or drop a column, or rename a column. You have to make sure that people in the previous projects and tasks understand the consequence of doing it. Right? You don't want to just make a uh, impulsive decision one morning that I want to add a column or rename a column. Change data type example. The good thing about W3 School, everything is mentioned with an example. So this is after creation is not creation is one thing, altering the table is is the same thing as long as you are doing it, you know what you are doing, and along with the consequences of it. Constraints. What type of constraints we have? That this field cannot be null. If the field cannot be null, it is a primary key automatically, because primary key cannot be null, and it should be a unique. We all know that. Even though maybe some field might not be a primary key, but it could be a unique value. Your driving license is your unique value. Your fingerprint is your unique value, right? Uh, so primary key could be a driving license number, but again, there are some other unique keys that uniquely identify you, your DNA or whatever. So these are the constraints, foreign key constraint we now know. Check. We will see that in a moment because this is not discussed in the book, but we can see it really quick. Default value, if you are adding a column or if you are creating a column or when you are creating a table and you want a default value, if the user does not provide a default value to it, what will be the default value for that? Creating the index. What is index? Do you know anything about index or remember anything about index? What is index? Used to create and retrieve data from database very quickly. It is written here. But what does it mean? So usually in the database, we we have primary key, which is the index, which is the primary key, which is not null, which is unique. Anything that is unique is is an index or within a certain domain, then it's considered as index. So if I want to select, if I want to create index not only on the primary key to make data retrieval faster, or let's say if I forgot, if I created the primary key but I did not create index, creating index can happen afterwards, but it's a time consuming process because SQL Server behind the scene creates index for all of your data. So that when you retrieve the data, how it has been able to write right now, when we are seeing, when we write a query and we press execute, the data retrieval is pretty fast. Well, there are certain algorithms behind the scenes which SQL Server is doing it for you, and indexing is one of them. Let's look at all of them one by one. As you can see, all these constraints are just below the create table indexes. So let's say you will see two types of queries here, uh, create and alter. In both of these scenarios, when I will go down, so let's see that if that's true. Not null. When you create when you are creating the table, you can create a table with not null in front of it. So if you forget, yes, you can do it afterwards. Alter table, alter table person, alter column this, age cannot be null. So if you forgot to add that, you can add it afterwards, no problem. MySQL is this, Oracle is this, and whatever the other version of Oracle is. Constraint on a unique value, create table, ID not null. So think of it, this is not a primary key. You did not mention primary in front of it, but it is unique. It is not null. So if it is not null, people can enter duplicate values to the ID. So yeah, you can create a unique ID, but better is if you just create it as a primary key. Why not? If it is a unique ID, just make it a primary key. If you forget to do this, here's the solution. Alter table person, add unique. Drop the unique constraint. Primary key. Primary key on ID. primary key on two columns, ID and last name. So this is kind of ID and last name. So ID will not be unique for sure, and the last name could not. So if there are two people with the name last name Khan, Khan, 1 comma Khan is one person, 2 comma Khan will be a second person. I don't care about their first name at the moment, but let's say whatever is their first name is, that's not the point. You can create the primary key based on 2. This is called clustered primary key. You are clustering two columns together to make one unique thing. Even though ID is not null, but not null does not mean that it cannot be unique. It can be unique. So if somebody say 2 comma Khan 1 and 2 comma Khan again, that will not be allowed in this table if you are inserting another row. So that will not be allowed. You can add the primary key later, and you can add the clustered primary key later as well. You can drop the primary key if you accidentally create it on the wrong column in both of the databases. So the reason I like it, because it's showing it in both databases, or 3 or 4 different databases that are out there. Foreign key, we already looked at it. Add the foreign key like this in MySQL. Sorry, add the column key in SQL Server like this. You have to type references. I think in MySQL you didn't have to, or do you? Yeah, references you typed it. You can add a foreign key after the fact, and you can add a foreign key in SQL Server. You can drop a foreign key if you don't want it. What is the usage of foreign key? If in the representative table which we are working on, if that representative ID is not existent, and we go to the customer table and we try to add a customer with the sales rep that does not exist in the sales rep table, it should not allow to add a customer with that sales rep that does not exist. So that's a foreign key constraint, and it is pretty common. So let's say if somebody claims that I am the rep of this company, but if I am not added in the company's database as a sales rep guy, should I be allowed to make a sale? No. So if in the customer column I am adding a new customer with my sales rep ID, but I am not the sales rep, it should foreign key constraint should trigger at that time and will not allow you to enter that. So it's a kind of a security thing as well. You can add that no person should be allowed to be a part of a sales rep team and claim to be a part of a sales rep team if he is not the member of the company. Check. This is not discussed in the book. Let's look at that. You can also check at the same time when you are creating the table that all of the people, all of the employees that are, or the person getting entered into the system will have the age greater than 18. Anything entering, anybody by accident trying to enter anything 17 or 18 or less will not be will raise an error, and it will not allow you to. So they are not necessarily an error, they are the constraint, they are keeping the data very clean and straightforward, right? Age, you can add a column and then add a check, or you can at the same time do this age and check that age should be greater than 18. So you forget and while you're creating the table, and that can happen, alter the table, add the check greater than 18. But this raises a point. If I have 10 people already added with the age 15, 14, 16, 17, and you add this check, what will happen? I think it will give me an error that you are adding this check to this table, but I see that there are some persons who are already entered into this database. What do you want it to do? Whether you want to add this check or no. At that time, you might have to increase those ages or remove those rows that are not eligible to be in that database if you are adding this constraint, this check constraint. Important one coming up, and you can drop the check. Important one coming up is the default value. So if you are creating a person and you don't know which city they live, by default assign them the city senders. So if I am the clerk entering the record and I don't know your city, by default, even though if you don't live in this city, by default your city will become senders, which probably will not be the case. But what you can do, if you are asking a person, he is aged person, he is not able to tell which city they living, by default you will give them the city senders. If some person is not able to speak, by default their city will become sandness, whatever. And this is a good one. When you place an order on Amazon, by default, get date value will be stored in the database as an order date, which is correct because most of the time when you click the last button to place an order, that is the moment and the time when you place the order. Or you are on the flight website booking a trip, when you say submit your credit card information, that is the time you place the order. That should be your order date. And one thing I would like to have is date and time instead of date, because we also want to know what time you place the order, date and time. Not necessarily on the packing slip which you receive at home, that what time you place the order. They will only care about, you only care about on the packing slip what date I placed order. But when the time when it is showing on the screen that this is the date and time you place the order, that will be the default date coming from the get date date. If you want to add this, forget to create this when you are creating the table. You can add this after the fact. Alter the table, add the constraint on the column. The default value should be for the city column is sendness. So I don't remember the syntax. I just copy and paste it, make it change. And I did that in one class when I was playing with primary key, foreign key. Dropped the default constraint. Last one, index. Index is for the faster column. So you can say, I want to add the index in the, I want to create the index on the first name, comma last name. Not a good idea to create the index on the textual based columns. Always a good idea to, because there could be 500 people living in Canada with the first name, last name John Smith. Maybe million of people remaining with the name John Smith. But you would like to probably create the index on the last name and ID. That will be a faster search instead of first name and last name. Remember, string matching will be string matching. The string matching algorithm that you learned in data structure will come into place. Number is a number. It will just compare the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1000, 1002, 10,000, 10,002, whatever. But if you are comparing the string matching algorithm will have to come in place, and you don't want to be doing that, right? So string matching, yes, it is sometimes uh, it is sometimes becomes if people don't know their ID or people don't remember the ID because they have created 10 years ago. Obviously ID for a particular membership or something, or membership number or membership ID, you don't probably remember. Sometimes that's why I say, can you give me your last name as well? I'll try to search you with your last name. So they are trying different indexes based on their training. The clerical staff is trying to find out whether they can quickly search you with your last name as well. So at that time, If the index is there, they will be able to find you. But if the index is not there and your name is pretty common name, this will slow down and finding it. So not a preferred way to create index on the textual based column. So add index, drop index, all those constraints are now discussed. Creating database, dropping table, using nulls, adding rows to a table. We know how to insert records in the table. Inserting a row that contains null, we can insert that. We can actually update the row, right? Uh, but make sure that you are not inserting a blank for your primary key. Viewing table data using the select query. Viewing tables data using the joining the table of the two tables. Error correcting in tables, we can look into it. Create a copy of a data. Let's open up SQL Server here. Creating a table from another table, we can look into that as well. I don't know what, it's a little slow in loading all the time. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Customer table is there. Select top 1000 rows. Table is there showing me the records. If I want to create the copy of this table, I can actually do that. I can do it very quickly by saying select all of these columns into customer 1. I'm just creating a copy. So let's say I'm working in development environment and I want to make a test data out of the actual data. So I'll just say select top. I'm just going to do it for all of it for now. So what it will do, select all the data from all these columns and it will create a copy of this table, customer table, into a table called customer 1 very quickly. It has created this. There's a copy of it now exist in my database. Refresh it, customer 1 is created. But here is the catch. Customer 1 and customer 1 are almost equal. You have asked SQL Server to create the copy of a table. It will try to copy as much as it can and as close as it can. Let's see how close it gets. Primary key is ignored. Primary key is here in the actual table. Primary key gets ignored totally. So you will have to add the primary key. If you are thinking that you are going to use customer 1 table in the future, not customer table, you will have to add the constraint manually, because all I did is after all the column names are ended, I added this into and the name of the table that you want to create, out of which table you want to create. So you just did that, but it tries to copy as much and as close as it can get. I think it is pretty close, nothing, but you have to make sure that it is adding all the, see, it did not add the primary key and foreign key constraint because customer 1 table is the standalone table, right? It has nothing to do with the sales rep table and there's no constraint. So you have to go and manually look at that do I need to create the primary key? Yes, if I need to create the primary key on the customer table, I will cheat here. So first thing first, I was able to create the copy of the customer table in a customer one table. Obviously, I cannot create two objects with the same name in the same database. That's why I need to give it as a customer one. But what else what else I'm missing? I'm missing the primary key. So I'll just say, okay, script key as create to this table. Okay, so it is creating the primary key. So now it has scripted out this uh, primary key for me. I don't care about this jumble of keywords it has added, but I want to alter the customer one table and add a primary key to it, because when I select into, it did not create the primary key constraint on it. So I will have to manually go and add the constraint. So let's say if I can just, because I just change it from customer to customer one, so I will be able to create the constraint on this copy of the table. And if i'm if I'm working in the test environment, if I'm working in the dev environment, and I don't want to and let's say this is the same production environment that I'm working on. First of all, I should not be working in the production environment or the live environment and copying and creating a copy of my tables. No, I should not be touching my critical tables in the production environment. What I should be doing is I will be taking the copy of my actual table in the middle of night and deploy it in the dev environment, and then I will be doing that. But if I want to create copies of a table, and developers do that because they need to create copies and copies and copies just to try things out, this will be the thing. So you want to be as close as to what is in the production environment. You might to add the primary key constraints. You want to add the check constraint, because it might not be adding all those constraints to you. You get as close as to what it is in the production environment and start playing it in your dev environment. So if the more closer you get, the more chances it will be a successful test in the test environment. When the UAT department is testing your data out or testing your new table structure out, they will say that this is as much as close that we have. So you are not changing it, but you'll not be moving this table. If this table is very close to the actual customer table, you will not be moving it. You will just, if you are in the live environment working side by side with the customer table, if it is your limitation or your company is not big enough, you might just create a customer to one table, and later on when you are ready to deploy it in the customer table, just change your queries from customer one to customer one to customer, and your queries will start to run as usual. So these are the two approaches that you can do depending upon which kind of environment you are working. If you only have one database server, because database server licensing do cost, and deploying it in the dev incur another cost, in test it cost another cost, and then obviously in the live production environment it has another cost. So there are three costs associated with it. And if your company says no, we cannot afford to have three servers, well, that's fine, we can have one server, but I will take a copy of the table which I am working with right now these days, or I'm developing on. So I will try to make a copy of customer into a customer one table. When I'm done finished, before I publish my code, my view, or my stored procedure, or any other thing that we're going to be learning in the future, I'll just gonna have to make sure that I'm changing customer one into customer. So now if I added it, is it added? Yeah, it is added. So now I'll go ahead and refresh, go to the keys. Here you go, the primary key constraint is now added to the customer table. So if I want to create a quick and dirty table from the customer, I can create that, no problem. If I want to create, and if my table is too big, let's say it has thousands and thousands of records, I can do this as well. Let me just delete this table. Yeah, this is the test data table. I'm sure I have to make sure that I'm deleting customer one. I'm not accidentally standing on customer table because this is my live data. And if I do this, jeopardize my data. So if I'll do this, and I don't want all thousand millions records, I can just say top 10 records, maybe top 5 records by customer ID should go into the customer table, and I think I can add it by date or something so that I have the latest data going into my customer table. Instead of, let's say this database was created in 2012, if I select top 5, it will actually pick up the top 5 from when the database created back in 2012 or 2015 when the database was created. Unfortunately, there is no date and time field here. Otherwise, I could have just said order by uh, order by date uh, and then create that top 5 rows. So I can create that. Customer table is now created with top 5 rows. Go ahead, refresh it. Again, customer one table is created. Obviously, each time I'll drop it and recreate it, I have to go here and add a primary key constraint. If it is not there, I can add the primary key constraint and then refresh it each time. So now I have this customer one table with the columns and the primary key, and I can just say that it is just showing me top 5 records that I move from customer table to the um, customer one table. It is missing some records because I just actually said that I want top 5 records. Here I did says that I want only top 5 records. So all the rest of the 7 customers are still missing. Let me refresh one thing. Script table as no, I think it was. I'm looking for tasks. Okay, yeah, here. I'm not going to go through some of these topics are for database administrators, so I'm not going to do that for now. I'm just thinking if I like to show you one thing, but I have to remember where is that available. Script table was something under task or something. I'm not looking at it. So let's say I created this table, but I'm just going to delete all the records. Customer one, delete from customer one. Nothing will stay inside this customer table now. it is all empty. I'm going to delete this constraint part, and I'm going to, yeah, this is customer one table. Nothing is in there. Well, if I have the structure available, and let's say I created the structure from the create table schema, that's fine. And now I want to insert the records into this table. I want to dump all the record from customer tables into customer one table. So you might say, okay, right? What do you think? It will work or it will not work? Make a best guess. I want you to guess now. Let's stay quiet. I need the best guess on this one. What will happen in this case? Structure exists, and I am trying to insert the records from a table. Well, it does two things. So you have to keep in mind when you use into statement in the select statement, it does two things, not one. What are the two things it does? Guess. No answer will be considered a wrong one. Okay, do I need to give more hint? So if the table exists and you try to create another table, what happens? If the table exists and you try to create that same table with the create query, what happens? Will it let you create or not? Yes. Because this table already exists here, and my intention was to select all the rows from the customer table and dump it into the customer one table. Well, intention is good, but this will not going to happen because the table already exists. So when you use this into statement, it does actually two things. It creates the structure and then it dumps the data. So it do two things pretty fast. It will create the structure for you and it also insert the record for you. So now let's say if I run this one, it will say that this table already exists. So what, I cannot do anything further. So the table either has to drop first and then you will be able to do that. So if I'll say that this already exists, so it will not be able to run the create query behind the scenes, right? That's the first thing that is not going to happen. If the first thing never happened, the second thing will not happen as well because it will not be able to dump the record from the customer table into the customer one table. So everything failed in this scenario if the table existed. So you have two options. Well, it's a little bit of costly query as well. When you use into and customer, it's a costly query because it is doing two things. It has to create the structure, that is okay, but then it has to dump the data as well. So it is doing two steps. Well, they are not in terms of cost and data. In terms of data and the creation, it is doing two steps. But let's say if you have the data already there, structure is already there, you just wanted to copy the information from one table to another table, you can still do that. Okay, so I will select all the rows from which table? I will select all the rows from my master table, which is customer table, and I want to insert it or append it to my new table. So all I need to do, all it is doing here, what it is doing, showing me all the records from the customer table, and they are properly aligned. Customer one, first name, last name, the column names are also according to my liking. What is happening in this one? Column names are properly aligned. Column names are properly aligned. They are all aligned. The column names are aligned properly. So this makes my life little easy. So I will just have to write, if my data is missing in the customer one table, all I can do is go here, insert into customer one. That's all I need to do. What will happen? That it will select all the rows from this table, customer ID. First column name is customer ID. Second column name is what? First name. Second column name is first name. Third column name is last name. Third column name is last name. So they are both aligned. So if I run this query, it will actually take all the records and append it to the customer table. So if I run this, all those records are now moved into the customer table. So if the schema exists, all you need to do is insert the record. You cannot use the select into statement. If you still adamant to create select into statement, then first drop that table, recreate that table, and it will do that. So if the schema exists, you will just say insert into the copy table in which you want into, and then you know the columns are already aligned, so you can insert the rows like this. So now if I run this query from customer one, instead of delete, I will say select all from customer one. I have all the data from the customer table copied into customer one table. Okay, that is good. If by accident, if I'll go ahead and run this query, what will happen? If I try to run this query twice, what will happen? Critical thinking questions. I don't want to keep giving you guys hint. What will happen? Will it insert or will it not insert? It will not insert. Why? Okay, then why? Why it will not be able to insert? It will not insert. But why? This is the issue. Because you already ran it once and records are already inserted with the same IDs. Now if you try to run it again, it will say that I cannot reinsert these records back into the customer one table because this guy already exists. So the primary key constraint becomes active here and it will not let you create the duplicate of the record. If I would not have placed it by going in here when I was doing this, that create a copy of this constraint. Remember I did that. I went into here and I say I want to I will want to, let's say, modify this, and I change it into, oh, not here, I will went into script as key and new query, and I went in here and I created the primary key constraint. Because I did that before I copied the data from customer table to the customer one table, it did allow me to run it once. But because I created the primary key constraint on the customer one table, I am so close to the actual table now, it will not let me insert the record into the customer one table. And because of that, the good thing has happened that if I have run this query twice, this gentleman here that I created with the primary key is not allowing me to run this record accidentally. If I would be lethargic and drop this query, let's say if I'm going to drop this query, let's see if I can I? So I'll just say drop to this query. I'll just run this constraint. It will drop this constraint from this table now. I'll go ahead and refresh this table. That key is gone, primary key is missing. Now look at the problem. If I'll try to insert the record, previously the key was there, it was blocking me to create the duplicates. But now because I have dropped that key, it has given me a little bit of luxury of reinserting those records, but that's a problem. You don't want duplicate records. You don't want duplicates for the customer's table. And if I now run it, it will be drastic, but I will do that. It has allowed me to enter 13 more rows. Now I have 26 rows, 2 of each. Let's run that. Joy, Joe, this, and then after record number 14 I have Joy, Joe and Smith again. So the more closer you are to the actual parent table, the better it is. The more closer to the schema you are, the more better it is. Because if you don't have the primary key constraint, it has allowed me to insert the duplicates. Well, it can allow me to insert duplicate as many times as possible now because it is not stopping me. Where is that? Yeah, here is it. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. "26 rows will be multiplied by 4 times more now. Here you go, 78 rows. Joy is here, then Joy is here, then Joy is on here, and then we will see them multiple times. If I just say select all, order by cust underscore id. How many types duplicates I have? 1 2 3 4 5 6 times duplicate for the Joy, 6 times for Joe, and this is the problem. And this is, you will see sometimes in the database where the primary key constraint is not there. This is the accident that you will see. Do you want to see those accidents? No, because you now don't know which one to keep and which one to get rid of. Well, there is one way to get rid of duplicates. I will show you actually two ways to do it. And I will show you, but those are advanced queries. Okay, how would you remove duplicates? Easier way. At least in a query form, not in the table form. I'm sure there's a select query that remove all the duplicates. Do you remember? How to remove duplicates? Or write a query that will not show me any duplicate records if there are duplicates in the table? Very easy query, very easy, just one word. Yeah, thank you, Jan. All those 78 records still exist. They are not removed, but they are merged into one record each time. Distinct. Oh, distinct is much better. It's a shortcut for me, but yeah, I can do this now. Or distinct, or I can copy this and paste it like this. But each time when I use a group by, anything except the aggregate function has to go on the group by. Remember that logic? That even though there is no aggregate function, but if you have, let's do this. Yes. Each time you add a column that is not an aggregate column, that is on which you are not aggregating upon, has to go on the group by. That is the very simplest logic that you can think if you don't understand what is group by is. So I added a group by on the customer first just to check my answer. Yes, it did remove the duplicates. Next time what I did is I said, okay, I have all the columns, I'll just copy it and paste it all the columns, but because I'm using the group by and there's no aggregate column in here, I have to add all those aggregate column or non-aggregate columns into a group by clause. and it gave me the same result. This query is same as the one. I'm on a very high level here, not from the book. These are the practical scenarios. So this one is here distinct, all very easy. Just use a keyword distinct. But do you understand what distinct does? What is group by does? If somebody asks you an interview question, what is the difference between distinct and group by? This is my exam question. So you will tell that you put a distinct, it will show all the unique records. That's okay. If you use a group by, you have to mention all the columns that are explicitly mentioned and are not in aggregate functions, which I'm not using any aggregate functions anyways. Those columns are should be used in the group by to show the unique values. This is the straight answer that I need. So I tested it so I tested my theory before I did that. I did that I did this and I showed this. That was my initial query. Remember when I did not explain to you that. It showed me all the customer IDs. That gave me a hint that if I put all the columns here and put all the columns in the group by, I will have a unique records. Just like I have this. This one is easier, but there is no escaping from the group by in the future as well. I'm telling you right now. Group by will be there for. You need to find out the underlying effect of what is causing the duplicate, not removing the duplicates. Yes, for the initial cleaning of the data, if the data is coming from five different employees, five employees who are retiring and leaving the company, if they are giving you five different Excel sheets and say that can you bring in this data to our actual database? Yes, I can bring in this data. But you need to find why they have so many duplicates in the legacy database. Clean those duplicates. Go as uh, go as clean as you can in your sources and then bring in the data to SQL Server. Yes, SQL Server do provide you tools to clean up the data. This is the query tool that you are using that is removing the duplicates. This is the query tool that is removing the duplicates. But your actual issue is still persist. If I run the query again on this one, your duplicates still exist here. You haven't removed the duplicates. So if I would be you, if I have created, I'm going to close some extra tabs here. I would be saying that select distinct all into customer 2 from customer 1. Will that fixes it? Yes, it will fix it because now out of those 78 distinct values, I will again come back to 13 distinct values. But the problem comes when, let me create a problem. Can I create a problem easily? If it lets me, that's fine. If it doesn't let me, then I will have to go a longer route. Okay, what is the issue? Instead of balance of 80.68, can I change it or not? It's not allowing me to change it. Let's say uh, I'm going to create an issue and then I will show you what is the issue. I'll go to my recent files, GMT database. So I'm just going to copy one row from here, close it. This is a quick fix. And you are happy chappy because you have removed all the duplicates. But I'm going to create the issue. And that is another real world issue that you will see that instead of 80.68, I will enter 90.68. And I will going to be inserting this in the customer one table. Here you go. I created the problem now. Let's go ahead. First, have a look at the tables now. Refresh the tables. I did create a customer 2. Where is customer 2? Did I create it? Not. Did I not create it? Okay, so let's do this. This is a good one. This is an, oh, don't worry. But that's okay. Leave it for now. But look at the issue now. What I created that. What I did is I added in the customer 1 table an issue that's created here. Let's run this query. Oh, not in there. I have 80 rows. Okay, yeah, I have 80 rows now. Focus on this one. I have added another Joy row because primary key is not there. So however many Joes I want to create, I can create. One Joe I created, which is a duplicate. I don't care about the row number 79, but look at this one. I created another Joe Smith with the customer ID 125 and I changed the balance to 90.68. All the previous occurrences of Joy is 80.68. Look at this one. This is 80.68. This is 80.68, right? So if I'll say order by cust underscore ID, okay, this I can remove duplicate, this I can remove duplicate, all these duplicates can be removed. But this one is a problem. I have now a Joe Smith with the balance of 80.68 and the Joe Smith with the balance of 90.68. So one with the 80.68 and one with the 90.68. So when I used to run, remove this and let me show you the underlying problem with this. So now if I run this query, select distinct all, my problem is much worse. For all the other guys, Joe, Billy, Sandra, I have one unique records. But with the Joe, I have a problem that one Joe is showing me balance and the other showing the balance of 90.68. Which one to choose? You as a developer know that? I created the issue, I know that. But if the data is coming from somebody giving you the data, can you bring in this data? You will be confused why, and you will be picking up the phone and making a phone call or writing an email that I have an issue here. I can fix all the other guys, but I cannot fix Joy because I don't know whether I should give him 80.68 or 90.68. I'm not paying out of my pocket that missing $10. You will have to let me know what is the issue. So these are the real world scenarios you will see. Sometimes you will see duplicates. Sometimes you are ready to remove duplicates, but you cannot remove all the duplicates. You will still have outstanding records that you need to fix. And this can happen all the time. Data cleanup is another job. Zapping the data that is not relevant, you will need to those data. You need to write the scripts to zap all the duplicates. All the duplicates, which duplicate that you want to remove. You probably want to remove the oldest record and keep the latest record. If there are two records for the same person, you might want to keep the latest one. Might want to keep the latest one. Business have to tell you which one to keep and which one not. They have to go and resolve issue at their end why this record was added. You are not the one who will be doing it, but sometimes people say that fix that. Well, you have to give me the right answer first, which one to keep, because this is related to the money, not related to the subscription or renewal. You are seeing the real world issues here. If you go back to the book now, you see you can create copies of the table, but the copies of the table will be missing constraints, so you will not you will be adding the constraints as much as you can, as close as you can. If you don't do this, you will see these kind of issues. Said that okay, you committed that you have to finish this by the end of today, and you end up with this issue, you'll not be able to fix it until somebody give you a proper answer. But if somebody says I need that table ASAP, you can just say refresh it. You will have a customer 2 table available. Well, I have made the table for you, I can give you the data, but let's look at that. The table is ready, customer 2 is ready, but problem is with the customer 2, you have to figure out which one to pick. And imagining customer logs in and want to see his data, and if he has duplicate data, it will show his record twice. He will be questioning why my data is all screwed up, why my balance is showing twice, one as $80 and one is showing as $90. Well, this is coming from the database, so it better has to fix before customer sees it. All right, we'll continue on to this duplicate related issue if we can, but most part I have covered it here. I'm thinking out we are covered here.